Hi, everybody. So before I start, in case you'd like to share anything, the hashtag is prototyping futures and the ad is AFE Media. The future one gets exposed to in the labs, fabs, and the VC hallways of the world, while exchanging with people that are making it happen today, is very different than we are told. It's neither as utopian nor as dystopian as Silicon Valley or Hollywood, respectively, try to make us believe. And lastly, it's much more exciting to be part of it than media ever communicates. So to start with, I shall paraphrase the iconic William Gibson quote: "The future is already here, it's just not evenly distributed." To "the future is already here, it's just not yet distributed." I've had the chance to once in a while get a glimpse into the future in the making by visiting and sometimes even collaborating with some of the visionaries, artists, scientists, and technologists who are creatively engineering it today. This presentation is very much a collection of thoughts inspired by conversations with them. I'll intercept this presentation with the kind of images that aren't directly illustrative, but more inspiring about what kind of VR experiences would be interesting for me. So I work as strategic advisor in Hollywood entertainment industry, but also consult technology companies, startups, and funds. Most of what I do involves thinking augmented and virtual reality and integrating larger businesses or entertainment properties. The projects that interest me have to usually cover equal new ground in innovation, culture, and sustainability. And I'd like to hope that these three words will become synonymous in the future. What I do is really about connecting things that are working but are not yet working together. All Future Everything, or AFE Media, is a digital platform for prototyping futures founded by myself and a group of friends connected over the mutual interest in how tomorrow is shaped. AFE is conceived as a meeting place to share ideas and explore all the ways to enhance the human potential. Think not only how to find solutions to existing problems, but also inspire people by visualizing kind of future worlds we'd like to inhabit. As Buckminster Fully aptly said, you never change things by fighting the existing reality. To change something, build a new model that makes the existing model obsolete. Prototyping futures. I'd like to start with a Ray Bradbury quote. People ask me to predict the future, when all I want to do is prevent it. Better yet, build it. Predicting the future is much too easy anyways. You look at people around you, the street around you, the visible air you breathe, and predict more of the same. To hell with more, I want better. My fascination and love for virtual reality lies precisely in its capability to be the most efficient tool and medium to prototype these potential futures of us. Futures we might aspire to, or futures we might want to avoid. We start building future by thinking future, and so visions matter. Visions give people a direction and inspire people to act. An inspired group of people is the most powerful force in the world. Today, what interests me more than anything is how we could build and how it could be a group of such people, and how we could create content that would have a transformative value to the world, inspire people not just ideas and stories, but by our working methods. As much as I do live in Twitterland and Gadgetland, the most interesting subject of discussion is not the technology itself, but what impact technology had, has, and most importantly will have to our relationships with ourselves, how we see ourselves in the world and of the world, our relationship to others, and also cultural, political, and social relationships, or lack of thereof. It's never how much you do, but how much impact what you do has. Two most important words here are motivate and focus. So VR revolution is really about technology becoming transparent, and it's the first step to it. This is a gaming conference, right? But I've specifically chosen not to focus on games alone, but rather look into the larger picture of where augmented and virtual reality might be going. I'm doing that mostly because I believe that element of game or game-based interaction will actually be vital for experiencing most, if not all, of the augmented and virtual reality content. And the reason I'm excited is that augmented and virtual reality facilitate merging of games, social media, education, and movies, as well as our everyday life, might actually revolutionize not only how we create content, but also the way we learn and communicate. But now, let's go back to the future, shall we? Because where we're going, we won't need screens. Our lives in 2015 are mediated by glowing rectangles, whether small or large. When we focus on a screen, we left the real world behind. And that is going to change. As our 2D and 3D worlds are colliding, a lot of things will change. These are words by my dear friend Alicia Naples of Magic Leap, the company that is working to actually make it happen today. The most fascinating thing about virtual reality is it allows the full potential of data to be realized. You have to think of computing outside the box and set content free. So let's speak a little bit about context. In 2014, the total augmented and virtual reality funding, including internal investments from companies like Microsoft, Google, Samsung, and Sony, was somewhere between $3 and $3.5 billion. Some 95% of it was focused on hardware. Although Andreessen Horowitz, Google, and Rothenberg Ventures were leading the charge in 2014, now almost every major venture capital firm has dedicated branch for these investments, and small investments are blooming too. The major problem, however, for the rapid and widespread adoption of VR is not just the lack of satisfying hardware, it's also the deluge of bad content. No one is putting out anything good, and so everyone is confused. And what I call, we've been living basically in a demo land. But as hardware development advances, and the entertainment industry is also catching up with the brokenness of its own business model, more funding will have to go towards quality content production. So these are some golden words by Bruce Sterling that every aspiring VR content producer should abide by. No longer allow yourself to be hypnotized by the sense of novelty. Just refuse to go there. Accept that it's already passé and create it from that point of view. Try to make news that stays news. In the adoption, the mobile will be leading the charge, and although most HMDs, Oculus Rift, Sony Morpheus, and HTC Vive are projected to hit consumer market by early to mid-2016, for most people, their first experience will be through the mobile device. Just some information. In China, Alibaba and Taobao are selling 300 headsets a month, most of which are cardboard or Samsung Gear iterations. By the end of the year, Google expects to have upwards of 10 million of cardboards in circulation, and I suggest you check out their partnership with New York Times. If virtual reality is not experiential, it's not virtual reality. The 360-degree video, mobile VR, and even the first generation of HMDs are nothing like where hopefully we'll be in 5 to 10 years' time. Think fully immersive, visual, sonar, haptic experiences that combine HMDs with wearable, robotics, and spatial installations. You have to rewind the history of video game arcades economy. It was making $8 billion, $9.6 billion in today's dollars, at its peak in 1982. For reference, the same year, pop music industry made $4 billion and Hollywood made $3 billion. There's an amazing opportunity for VR arcades business. Fairly expensive installations, but highly profitable as they could be experienced by many people as gateway to the real VR. So all these R's, what do they stand for? R is reality, AR, augmented reality, digital content overlaid and augmenting our perception of the analog world. And VR is the virtual reality. We, analog beings, are entering a digital world that promises to be as good or even better than the real one. But all those notions are becoming outdated as we speak, as is our technology. We simply cannot guess the future of VR based on what we have today. Currently, most if not all of augmented and virtual reality development is segregated. Virtual reality campus, Oculus Rift, HTC Vive, Sony Morpheus, AR, Google Glass, HoloLens, Magic Leap. Every major technology company is working on device or applications for at least one of these camps, and mostly both, Apple including. You should check out their first VR project with U2 that just got released. The most successful technology gets out of our way and lets us live our lives. The future of such technology are the devices and platforms that will allow us to transition from physical and varying degrees of digital as seamless experience. Really, it should be as easy as switching between different levels of transparency, and as smooth as our normal reality, despite its disparate sources. It has to facilitate, not complexify, our everyday experience. It has to bring real value, and it has to be enjoyable. We're talking of blending the R's for a blended reality until somebody finds a sexier name for it. So here I'll show different types of head-mounted displays, from the mobile devices to its more complex, such as FOV, that include eye tracking. Media being mostly captured by entertainment applications of augmented and virtual reality, inadequately little is spoken of how this technology will and could change the future of work as we know it. In entertainment, there is a want for it, but in the industrial space, there is a need for it. We're talking change of stock of prices, level of impact that implementing AR could have to certain industries. Augmented artificial intelligence supported instant expert capability, digital overlay on the world that could be teaching you, assisting you, guiding you. Such ease of knowledge transfer will be of immense value to the industry. AR and VR combined with EEG sensors monitoring your brain activity, engagement, response, and or connected to body sensors monitoring your physical exhaustion safety, could both increase productivity, especially in hazardous and high-risk professions. We already have to think of privacy issues that access to just performance data will generate. Kevin Kelly once said, having access is more important than owning things. Body swapping, experience transfer, virtual travel and education. AR and VR will provide you all that and more. In the third decade of the 21st century, the economy of virtual products might very well compete with the VR commerce of the real ones. Question often asked, will people want to skip the real experience entirely in favor of the virtual one? They might. To many people, though, the virtual experience will be a gateway to a physical one, a possibility to choose and tailor to themselves easier and better than ever before, where they're really interested, rather than over-consuming or semi-consuming what brings them no real value. This might actually mean a more sustainable future. Imagine the shift from producing more stuff to producing more experiences, which I'd like to hope may stand for more knowledge. VR is really the technology to be another. And despite it being crude as it is, you have to look at early examples as the machine to be another by Be Another Lab to get an idea where things might be going. VR could allow us to discover sensations, cultures, and places that we would otherwise be unable to experience. Even more exciting is how we could transfer the knowledge we gain in the virtual space to our physical life. Up until recently, tools helped us to extend our physical selves. Today, technological tools are helping us to extend our mental selves. Moving from advertising to advertainment. Since the 1980s, we've been dreaming about the resplendent future of virtual reality. No part of this dream includes corporate sponsors shellacking our vision with brand messages. But now that technology is on the cusp of mainstream, advertising experiences are at the forefront of VR development. Marketers at the biggest brands are among the first to dive into technology. The content they're making is some of the best produced that there is, and that is a problem. The truth is, very few of us are interested in experiencing the brand. People don't like corporations, people like people. People like nature, people like sports, science, art, superheroes. The list could go on. There are very few brands that people actually like, but even fewer that people are generally interested in. In order to create AR and VR content that would generate real engagement, producers have to shift their focus from branded content to brand-supported content. Brands have to collaborate with creatives, which is more than just hiring them. Pushing content onto people doesn't work. Pulling them in does. Instead of thinking how to deliver a branded message to the audience, one has to think how to give it meaning. In order to arrive at what you are not, you must go through the way in which you are not. A century ago, T.S. Eliot said. And I'd like to start speaking about how we could create VR content by saying that new tools really require a new way of thinking. I haven't yet seen a content piece that would successfully integrate several formats in one: 360, HVR, rendered content, data visualization, computer generation, algorithm-based imagery. Game developers, Hollywood producers, audio artists, and platform engineers seem all to be working on their own thing. The lack of active collaboration only leads to delays in adoption. Developers alone won't make great content. Creatives alone won't make great experiences. In order to produce something as innovative and immersive as it is emotionally engaging, the best of talent from multiple disciplines have to come and work together for one shared goal. We should not forget that true VR is not merely a visual journey, but a multisensory one. It's a tool and a medium for radical creativity, combining the knowledge from diverse and sometimes even seemingly very disparate fields might be the most exciting thing about VR for me. VR is not really about stories, it's really about experiences. And we have to go from novelty to full-on escapism. It has to be true to the experience of going there. It has to be better than reality we are on at the moment. And for now, it's just a novelty in this reality. It is not yet compelling enough in today's world where people are craving experience. We need to find new tools to create new experiences versus finding new tools to tell new stories. And it's not really about stories anymore, and definitely not about telling them. Being told is authoritative. It strips you of your own creativity. What you want is not to follow the narrative, you want to experience the character. The only thing that we really, really want, and that we anticipate, and that we'll be willing to spend extended amounts of time and money for, are extraordinary experiences. VR is really the next generation communication platform. This medium is really meant to override your senses. We need to tip the balance, pull the story into your world, instead of you being pulled into the story. Here we're asking some big questions about notions of consciousness. Where do you begin and where the world ends? Who am I as an individual? Am I part of the experience? What is it to be experienced entity in this world? All these notions are something bigger than we currently comprehend. VR is a profound jump. It is something that could maybe help us understand consciousness. True virtual presence might be the biggest shock to your system and the beginning of something really new. Maybe new ways how we could communicate with each other, experience each other. At the end of the day, every successful technology is about connectivity, where our contexts join. Building a new world in virtual reality. Sash Gonsalves of Oculus Story Studio says, scrap presence. What VR does is that it allows you to experience a different state of being. VR is about immersion. VR is about being in the world. The world can be real, but doesn't have to be. The magic of VR is that fictional world can be as real as the real one. And the realness of that world is precisely what will make that experience compelling. As much as I'm interested in discovering unknown parts of this world, I am even more compelled to be transported into fictional future worlds. For example, work in a science fiction city through the eyes of Ghost in the Shell's Motoko Kusanagi, experience cyborg vision, layers of data, or multiple visions overlaid on my world. We have to think of new ways of learning, comprehending, experiencing information and data in augmented and virtual reality. Among the VR content pieces I'm really looking forward are Aaron Coblin's immersive data worlds, or generative algorithm-based VR experiences. One of the recent favorites is Foreign Nature by Julius Horstways. And one of the most interesting areas for development in VR are experiences that induce altered state-like sensations. I'm certainly most anticipating the kind of VR that someone like Gaspar Noé will produce. The interesting things about the future, where this technology could lead. Think of neuromarketing, neurogaming, and neurodesign. And here's what Mark Zuckerberg of Facebook has to say. Eventually, I think we're going to have technology where we can communicate our full sensory experience and emotions to someone through thoughts. Think of interesting areas of validating and integrating biometric type of inputs. Game design and content that can revolve around players' emotional response. Using sensors to better understand users' reactions to content. Think of the body as a technology platform. Think also of the future interface as the best user interface is no interface. Documentary VR, sometimes rendered from captured data, but mostly 360, is a perfect medium to raise awareness of a social, environmental, political, and ethical issues by bringing the audience into the other person's reality. Simply by the virtue that you cannot zip through or look away, it can generate empathy like no other medium ever could. VR is certainly the medium that will allow, and maybe even force, us to broaden our notions of communication. But now let's speak about the brave new VR world. Knowledge is an always two-edged sword. For every benefit, there is a hazard. As much as spoken about VR and empathy, it will generate, the opposite will also be true. Think of hardcore porn, violence, hatred, propaganda-infused content, basically the dark web transposed into VR. How much more visceral it will be in this new immersive platform. The big question is, how do you child-safe the VR? When VR reaches a more interactive stage, most, if not all, of our interactions will be tracked. All this is bound to raise numerous ethical issues and will necessitate rethinking our legislation around virtual crimes. Once again, technology is neither good nor bad. It's what we as people choose to do with it. The street finds its own uses for things, but it's upon us to create something great with it, something that is truly worthwhile experiencing. VR is basically where Hollywood meets Silicon Valley. It can put your audience in the most compelling places to experience activities they can only dream of, while being eye to eye with the people or characters they admire. Immersion is the new engagement. In the very near future, the world of successful entertainment property will be experienced across a diversity of channels, and not just as marketing, but also as participatory engagement that can take someone from simply a moviegoer to a fan to a member of something bigger. Entertainment needs to generate new engagement formats, and with that, also new revenue. 2 or 3 years gap between the different episodes of a franchise risks you losing your audience. AR and VR, as well as gaming experience alongside regular release merchandising, could loyalize your fan base. Think also of new ways to monetize talent and live events by virtualizing them. In order to create large-scale immersive experiences, entertainment producers will need to collaborate with technologies. True innovation will only spring from engaged conversation between creatives and engineers. Blend your world with story worlds gives you an opportunity for you to have your version of a story. William Klein of Rival Theory says, on creative interactive and cinematic narratives and VR characters driven by artificial intelligence, as we stand in the presence of virtual counterparts, lean and look them in the eyes, we'll begin to lose any sense of distinction between digital and real worlds. People ask me if they will be able to fall in love with a character from our stories. Of course the answer is yes, People already find the way to fall in love with characters from books, movies, and television. The true game changer, however, is when you realize that the character is falling in love with you. From entertainment to edutainment, fiction is the design tool. Building an entertainment franchise in the 21st century is a connected, collaborative network project. It is a celebration of an inspired story experience, one that can ultimately be a dynamic expression of the best of contemporary talent, science, and technological innovation coming together for a shared goal. Bringing real-world arts and technology into fiction in order to create a vision so compelling that it bleeds back into the real world, rendering the futures we're barely allowing ourselves to imagine. The potential of the 21st century franchise is not just to entertain, but also to prototype and change the world. How could we create experiences that would allow people to gain knowledge and learn new skills as pleasure, as not a chore? We spend so much time using technology, it has to be an enriching experience. We spend so much time consuming content, it should rather improve than deteriorate our life quality. We can use AR and VR to champion and create new possibilities and bring the future to life and enable you to develop new strategies and action agendas. And because we are designed by what we design, and because we are in everything that we do, we are starting to realize we are these tiny nodes in a huge connected network. The most probable outcome is that we'll become inseparable from our technology. We'll just blend into our technology. And so I'd like to hope that this technology will be good. Thank you.